Welcome to Tell Me Your Story. I am here with Dennis Henson. Once again, we are continuing this series of broadcast, podcast, videocasts on the book he has written. He has compiled now he said in a previous program 6 years, but it's actually more than that. It's more like 50 because he's been collecting stuff just like we all do. But this has been real impactful elements that he's put into Real Impact. Daily inspiration. It is available through realimpactbook.com. You also have an ebook that you can order for free. The link will be sent to you. You'll be given opportunities for other possibilities along the way. You don't have to participate in them or take advantage. We hope you will, but we ask you to at least get that ebook and then start to incorporate that into your life. Dennis, welcome back. It's great to have you here to talk about probably, it sounds to me like one of your favorite people as well as mine, because I used to listen to some of his programs on the radio station I worked for back in Phoenix. We're going to talk about Zig Ziglar and his story. Thank you for joining us again.
Well, thank you, Richard. I appreciate you having me. I really enjoy these sessions.
These are a lot of fun to do, I have to tell you. And one of the things we're going to talk about, of course, is Zig Ziglar. I'm going to ask you to give us a little background on him. But first, we're going to hear a little bit about the story of Zig Ziglar. And this particular story is an amazing thing. I don't have that many of my book, copies of my book, in a basement somewhere or a closet that I'll be selling somewhere along the way. But this story is entitled 25,000 Books.
25,000 Books. Hilary Hinton Zig Ziglar was born in South Alabama in 1926, the 10th of 12 children. When he was 5, his family moved to Yazoo City, Mississippi, where Zig spent most of his childhood. Growing up in Mississippi left Ziglar with an enduring Southern accent. As a young man, he made his living marketing cookware, selling enough pots and pans to earn a management position. Ziglar was so skilled in selling that he successfully made the challenging transition from direct marketing to motivational speaking. A kind and generous man, Ziglar wanted to help people realize their potential. So early in the 1970s, he decided to author a how-to guide to health, happiness, and success. Countless hours were devoted to his venture. He wrote about attitude, faith, courage, motivation, healthy living, selling, integrity, and winning. After many months of research, meditation, and soul-searching, his book, See You at the Top, was ready for publication. With great enthusiasm, he submitted his manuscript to major publishing companies of the day and gave them his best sales pitch. Unfortunately, none of them were interested in the book about success. He then contacted other publishers, only to find that they were also skeptical. Yet Zig was not the kind of person to let a little rejection dampen his enthusiasm. As a salesman, he was accustomed to hearing no. A no only strengthened his resolve and moved him closer to a yes. So Ziglar submitted his manuscript to some smaller publishers. But alas, those companies also turned him down. Some even stated there wasn't a market for a book about hype. 39 no's later, Ziglar was disappointed but not ready to give up. Facing the kind of rebuff most authors would have thrown in the towel, but Zig wasn't like most authors. He knew his books would sell if given a chance. He even believed it could become a blockbuster. In his mind's eye, he envisioned See You at the Top helping thousands of people become healthier, more productive, and enjoying the fruits of success. He anticipated lives being changed for the better because of the information in his book. So Zig Ziglar made an extraordinary and courageous move. He published the book himself. Keep in mind that at the time, there were no print-on-demand publishing companies or websites to lead you through the complicated process of putting a book in print. Self-publishing was not a simple procedure. The printing cost alone would require a substantial financial risk. Nevertheless, Zig located a company that would produce his book, but only if he prepaid for 1,000 copies. However, with 25,000 copies, he would receive a substantial price break. Zig knew that most authors never sell 250 books, much less 25,000, and certainly no reputable publisher would have recommended placing an order of that size, especially for an unproven product. But Zig Ziglar's desire to help people outweighed his fear, so he invested his money in his dream. Placing an order of that size must have taken a great deal of courage, but faith and courage were what his book was about. To Zig, the 25,000 books were only a first step toward helping millions of people. He knew to reach his goal, he would not only need to sell those books, but also millions more. Zig was confident in his decision because he knew you can have everything in life you want if you will just help enough other people to get what they want. Zig Ziglar. A few weeks later, thousands of pounds of books were delivered to the Ziglar home, and Zig knew precisely what to do. He'd taught it in his speeches for years. It was time for him to prime the pump. Zig often told the story of two friends driving their truck through South Alabama on a hot day. With the August sun beating down, they became thirsty. So when they passed an abandoned farmhouse and spotted an artesian well with an old pump, one of them jumped out to get a drink of water. Yet when he tried the pump, nothing came out. His friend explained, "To get anything out of that pump, you must first put something in." "What do you mean?" "Well, you have to prime the pump." So he found an old bucket and dipped it in a nearby stream. Then he poured some of the water into the old pump and said, "Now try it." Still, nothing came out. "Don't stop. Keep on pumping and pump harder." And though it seemed nothing was happening, the young man kept pumping. When you put something in, the law of compensation says you'll get something out. Zig Ziglar. After a while, the pump started to make gurgling sounds. Then, like magic, a stream of cool, clear water poured from the pump spigot. The flow was steady and abundant, and to keep the water flowing now only took an easy, smooth stroke of the pump handle. The amount of water was plentiful, and the two young men enjoyed the fruits of their labor with a cool drink of water. Ziglar knew that he must first put something in to achieve his goal, so in addition to his investment of money, he devoted his time and energy to the project. Never expecting a quick return, he simply worked and embraced his faith. Like Zig said in his story, you've got to sweat at it and pump away for some time before expecting the water to come. If you work hard enough, long enough, and enthusiastically enough, your rewards will start to flow. Day after day and week after week, Ziglar enthusiastically promoted See You at the Top. He was determined to do whatever was necessary to get his book into the hands of people who needed it, and he never let the possibility of failure enter his mind. After months of labor, the word began to spread about an excellent new book containing some valuable information. Then, as suddenly as the water had appeared from the old pump, Zig's book began to take on a life of its own. Sales organizations and marketing companies purchased large quantities for their sales forces. Parents bought it for their children. People looking to improve their lot in life descended on hundreds of bookstores requesting Zig Ziglar's new book, See You at the Top. Ziglar's plan worked, and his investments of money, time, and effort paid off. But he didn't slow down. He continued to promote until the first 25,000 books vanished, and he had to place a second order. And still he didn't stop pumping. He continued until a third order had been depleted. Finally, the book that would not sell was being sold in such quantities that keeping up with the printing became a problem. Then something quite remarkable happened. Zig's phone started to ring. The people who insulted him now asked for a contract to handle See You at the Top. The last time I checked, Zig's extraordinary book had sold over 1,600,000 copies in hardcover alone, and after 47 years, it's still going strong. I genuinely hope this story makes you wonder what Zig said in that book. And if you choose to find out, I'll see you at the top. Thank you. Author's note. I want to especially thank Ms. Lori Majors, Zig Ziglar's longtime executive assistant, for her help and support with this book. You were born to win, but to be a winner you must plan to win, prepare to win, and expect to win. Zig Ziglar. If I had to tell a young person or someone struggling the one thing that would have the most impact on their life, that thing would be read and listen to the right things every day. Dennis Henson.
25,000 books. That is a lot of books to have on hand, Dennis. Have you ever had that many of your book, Real Impact, or any other that you've written right there on hand?
No, I haven't. My books actually go to a warehouse somewhere. Things are so much more automated now than they were back in the 70s when this all took place.
Yeah. So first of all, where did you hear about Zig Ziglar and his incredible story? And that's another one of those things we talked about previously, where um, he, in a manner of speaking, he risked it all because 25,000 books, even back then, that's not cheap. So talk to us about that.
Back in the 70s, I was working with a sales company in Selmer, Tennessee, and we would yearly go to a sales meeting and we'd have speakers and motivational tapes and different things. And one of the things they did was brought out a reel-to-reel 8 millimeter film.
Mm-hmm.
And it was of Zig Ziglar telling the story about priming the pump. Now, that's become his most famous story, and most people that know of Zig know about priming the pump. I met someone a couple of weeks ago that actually works with Zig Ziglar's company now, and he had a pen with a pump on it. I thought, oh, that's really great. That fits right into the story. And so that impressed on me. I mean, that was one of the first motivational, well, now you'd call it a video. Back then, it was a reel-to-reel 8 millimeter film.
Yeah.
And you didn't get to see a lot of those. And that was very impressive. And I was impressed with the story. I was impressed with Zig. He was born in Alabama, and I was too. So I felt like we had that in common. I went to Mississippi State University at one time, and a lot of people there was from Yazoo City. That's where Zig grew up, Yazoo City, Mississippi. And I visited them and saw the town where he grew up. It's just a little small town in Mississippi. So I kind of felt close to him, even though I never actually met him. When I was working in Carrollton, Texas one time in a sales organization, I called on his office, and when I realized this is Zig Ziglar's office, I was just in awe. Unfortunately, he wasn't there that day, and I didn't ever get to go back when he was there, but I came that close. So I did meet his secretary while I was there. It turned out she'd been his secretary for many years, pretty much his adult life. So when I started this story, I contacted his office and talked with that same secretary, Laurie Makers. And I told her I was writing a book, and she said, that's wonderful. So I sent her the whole book. And she looked at the story and she said, well, this is this way. And this quote goes like this. So she helped me a lot in putting the story together and making it real, making it exactly the way it happened, because she witnessed it. And that just made it even better and more special.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did in this story was I took the story of priming the pump, and I took the story of him purchasing 25,000 books, and I merged them. I showed where he used his own techniques of priming the pump with selling the 25,000 books, which turned into 50,000, which turned into 75,000, which turned into him getting phone calls from people who had turned him down in the past and that you just heard about in the story. So it's quite an inspiring story. He did what he said. He did what he taught.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very inspiring.
It makes me think of, and again, it seems as though the messages are intertwined from one story to the next, because it sounds to me like he was willing to once again gamble. I don't know if it was everything, but a significant amount, because I'm going to assume they were probably paperback as opposed to hardcover books. Needless to say, 25,000 books, even at, I don't know, 10, 15 bucks a book, that's a big chunk of change, even if it's the author price. And then you've got those in your basement or your garage somewhere, and you've got to distribute them yourself and circulate them yourself. But that's a big investment. Would you say that that is one of the keys, and I guess we might want to talk a little bit about this in terms of being willing to do that without maybe jeopardizing your family's welfare, your welfare, et cetera, et cetera. I guess that's one of the 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 catches that some people will get caught in because they say, "Well, yeah, I'd really like to do that. I would love to take 100 or 500 copies of my book and go over here." We have, for example, a Chaucer's local Chaucer's bookstore here in Santa Barbara where you can go there and you can set it up to where, yeah, I'd like to do a book signing and a presentation, or maybe you can have a read, and they'll set it up for you. You bring the books in, you sign them, and then they'll sell them for you, and then, and so on and so forth. Um, but can you talk a little bit about that aspect of it? Because again, that is quite an investment.
Well, Zig, he had faith. That's one of the things: desire, faith, will, and action. And he did all of those things. And he was a wonderful salesman. He, of course, you listen to the story and he sold pots and pans. And he made the transition. My dog wants to be on the podcast. He made the transition into motivational speaking. So he kind of had something already set up. So every time he spoke, or every time he did a conference and went out and helped the sales organization, he would be able to sell 10 or 20 or 25 books. But he'd have to do that 1,000 times. And he did. And then he did it again and again. But what happened was, once the book got out in front of people, they realized, oh, this is really a great book. This can help other people. And by word of mouth, which is really the best way to sell books, which is why we're talking today, by word of mouth, the word got out that this is really a great book and it will help people. So people bought it to give for gifts, to give to their friends, to give to salespeople. Sales organization bought them in big bulk amounts, which is how he was actually able to eventually sell 75,000 out of his garage. The first 25,000 eventually disappeared, and he made a reorder. And then he did it again, and then the phone rang, and he was able to turn it over to a distributor by that time, because all over the country, bookstores and libraries were having people coming in every day asking for the book. So once they found that out, then they wanted to help him. When they had told him no at first, they just turned him down flat. Nobody wants to read a book about height, which is so funny.
And that's another thing too. And I've noticed this in music primarily, especially in the last few years, but it's been prevalent throughout music history. When someone writes a song from the heart and it touches the heartstrings of the listener, 9 times out of 10, that's gold. And it turns into gold, and it may turn into a Grammy and all that kind of stuff. But that is one of the most amazing things, especially when it comes to books. And you've got these stories that each one is not going to necessarily pluck the heartstrings of the reader. Certain ones will and certain ones won't. But you have such a diversity in there. And when you chose to write about Zig Ziglar, obviously he was obviously a prominent individual in your life, at least as far as a personality and what he had to offer and what he had to say. And so forth, as well as, I am sure, as you and he, as you two grew, you watched him grow and you saw how he was changing his life through the very philosophy he was sharing with people. And that's really what you're trying to do now, is maybe it is and isn't your philosophy. Let's just say in this case of the 25,000 books, this is Zig's story that you've put together. And look what you can accomplish if you're willing to do it. If you're willing to do it.
Exactly. Well, the book that I have here, you read that story, you're going to want his book, See You at the Top. I mean, that's what the story is about. So what Zig taught started a ripple. And it went through me, and it's going through this book, and it's continuing, and it's more than a ripple. By now, it's a wave. The
Yeah.
same way we Napoleon Hill, when he wrote his book, nobody knew who he was. He'd been a failure so many different times, and he had such a hard time. And his book just started this ripple, which
Yeah.
has grown and grown and grown. And now there's hundreds of thousands of people that give him the credit for their business success. And he didn't really make a lot from writing Think and Grow Rich. Did you know that?
I did, and that happens to a lot of artists. I'm going to use that generic, broad brush term, artist, because I consider authors to be artists too. It happens a
Right.
lot.
It does. He was just not a very good businessman, and his wife took advantage. His wife and their attorney took advantage of him, and they ended up with all the profits from Think and Grow Rich. Eventually, he got part of them back. But that's another book and another story, and
Yeah.
his story is super interesting too. But he's going to be in Real Impact too, so that's something that you can look forward to.
Oh, absolutely. Also, to look forward to more of our conversation with Dennis Henson, and a conversation about real impact, daily inspiration. We hope you will get your copy at realimpactbook.com. This is Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, and I'm your host along with Dennis Henson. We're talking about his book, the latest release that is available in all of the basic and familiar formats, but also available in e-format, e-publishing, Kindle, if you will, and you can get a free copy. All you have to do is go to realimpactbook.com, fill out the little piece of information that sends you the download link. There'll be no, there's no paywall, there's no mailing list that you're going to be put on. There will be opportunities for you to take advantage of if you should choose to do so. Ties into my book, Choices, 5 Steps for Life. We all make choices, my friend. I hope folks will choose to take advantage of those opportunities. But even if they don't, they will have chosen to get a free copy of your ebook that they will be able to read. And one of the things I want to talk about in this segment is that aspect of not only how we are changed by everything that we take into our being through the 5 senses, especially specifically, but then how those things we've taken in change us. And depending upon what you take in, I also talk about this as well. It changes you based upon what it is that you are taking in. And you made a very, and I remember saying in our interview how I feel a certain responsibility to you to make sure I read something of a positive, profound, inspiring, encouraging nature every day. And I think I've pretty much kept up on that one. But how important what it is that goes in. I'll use the analogy of an automobile. We had a Jetta, beautiful black Jetta back in Phoenix. It was a diesel. Pulled into the gas station, fill her up. Well, it said diesel right there. You could smell the diesel coming out of the tank. They filled it up with gasoline.
Oh,
Well,
my.
fortunately, they did pay to have it repaired and cleaned and everything, and we got it back. But you put the wrong fuel in, and it's not going to work. In the same instance with the human being, if you don't put the kind of fuel in that's going to move you forward to what it is that you really want, you're never going to get there, right?
Oh, that's correct. Forming a habit of reading it every day is not the story. I mean, you could, if you don't read the right things, then you're going to probably be entertained. You could just watch TV and get the same effect. But the real habit that you want to form is the habit of reading something motivational or positive every single day that leads you toward where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it could be a pamphlet on medicine if you're going to become a doctor. It doesn't really matter what it is. If that's going to lead you closer to becoming a doctor, or if you want to become an engineer, you read an engineering book or some article that came out. It really doesn't matter, and the length doesn't matter.
Right.
Back in the 3rd century, a group of monks came up with a way to study the scriptures, which was much more powerful. It's called Lectio Divina. And what they would do was they would take one scripture and they would read it and they would imagine themselves as part of what was going on in the scripture. Then they would read it out loud, and then they would contemplate what they'd read. So it does, they wouldn't read an entire book. They wouldn't read the Bible. They wouldn't read a whole chapter. It's one scripture. Mm-hmm. So this book is about contemplation.
Right.
It's about reading until something hits you and oh, wow, that's powerful. Then contemplate on that. And it will have so much more of an impact than just reading the book. Some of the people, we get Amazon feedback reviews. Mm-hmm. And the people who just picked the book up and read it would leave 3 stars or 2 or 1 or I don't know, lower star reviews. And then they would mention something and you could tell they didn't read the introduction. They didn't use the book the way it was intended. Now, the people who did, and there's been over 100 of those, say, oh, this book's different. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. Mm-hmm. It's life-changing. I mean, read the Amazon reviews. I read them every day. Look, if you want to make someone happy, I can tell you how to do it. Go to Amazon, read my book, go to Amazon and leave me a review. I'll be happy. I'll read it. I mean, I look every day, I'll read it and you'll make me happy. So if you want to make someone happy, that's the way you do it. And I'll appreciate it too.
Mm-hmm. I think that one of the most profound aspects of reading the book and following the instructions is that's exactly what happens. I actually have it going on I have it in my car on my Audible through the car speakers, and I actually I'll pop it back to the beginning of the story that I just read, and I might read it a couple of times, and then I have to remember to turn it off. 9 times out of 10, I get to my destination because I'm not that far away from things. And so I don't have to worry too much about continually reading. And I think about the message or the multiple messages because I know that in spite of your intent to share, whether it in this format or others, the rocky start. Well, the main message there is ABC. But I'll go back and I'll read it today and, I got the message DEF. 3 days later, I'll read it again and GHI and so on and so on and so on. And that is a testament to the depth of these stories or how deep one can go. The stories could be longer, give us a little more detail, a little more backstory and so forth. But you don't want to be writing, you don't want to be compiling War and Peace, which, by the way, I have not read. Not sure yet whether it's worthy of my spending that much time. That's a massive volume. But I think that's one of the things too, as I mentioned earlier, people will reread things again and again and again. I mean, I've reread Autobiography of a Yogi, I don't know, several hundred times probably in the 40 or 45, 50 years that I've been reading it. And it's just remarkable. So that's where this book comes in. You're going to get a different perspective each time you read it. And that's a wonderful thing. We're talking with Dennis Henson. This is Tell Me Your Story. Real Impact, Daily Inspiration. That's the title of the book. The author is with me here on the program. I'd like to refer to him as my co-host for this series of programs. Real Impact, a daily inspiration available at realimpactbook.com. You can get an e-copy free. Just go to that website and fill out the form. You're not going to be put on a list or anything, and get that download, and away you go. Dennis, this is a remarkable opportunity for people. And I do want to be clear here that as much as, yes, of course, we're promoting your book, and we appreciate the opportunity to do that, this isn't an infomercial. This is an opportunity for us to share the ideas that are presented throughout the stories. And we're talking here, of course, in particular about Zig Ziglar and his life and times, and the 25,000 books that he started with. And as you talk about in the story, he sold out of that garage, he sold 75, three quarters of a million. No. I beg your pardon. 750,000, get my math right here, books. And that is back in the 70s. That is unheard of. Now, the reason I bring that up is because that's not the way it was done. Is that another element there, that we have to be willing to let go of the old ways of doing things, whether they work or not? If we want to get noticed, if we want to get where we want to go, if we want to make an impact, sometimes it's not about breaking the rules. Maybe it's about coming up with new rules for doing things that still work, but don't violate, keep you, on the legal side of things. You know what I mean?
That's right. The thing is, he knew he wanted to sell the 20, he knew he had to move those 25,000 books.
Mm-hmm.
He tried the conventional ways. He contacted a number of distributors, and they all turned him down. Some of them laughed at him, and they made fun of the book. He did that first, and that didn't work, but it didn't deter him. He'd heard no before. He was a salesman. He knew that every no just got him closer to a yes.
Mm-hmm.
So he was willing to try other things. And he continued trying other things until he was successful. And that's what he teaches. That's what the book's about, the secret at the top. It's a story within a story. All right. I'm telling the story of Zig about a book. What I'm hoping is that everybody will get the book.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's one of those books that will lead you toward whatever it is you want to do. Look, if you want to become an engineer, you can read Zig Ziglar's book, See You at the Top, and it will help you become an engineer or a nurse or a fireman, whatever you want to be. That book will help get you there. I don't know if many people know this, but Zig had a weight problem. He was overweight. And one of his goals was, I don't want to be overweight. I want to be healthy, and I want to be a normal weight.
Mm-hmm.
If you've ever seen a picture of him, he looks very healthy and very normal. But that wasn't normal for him. Genetically, he would have been an extremely heavy person. That's part of what the book's about. It's about doing whatever it takes to get what you want and being healthy doing it at the same time. So it's an amazing book. And if the only thing you get out of reading my book is that you get that one and read it, I have accomplished something really great.
Mm-hmm.
Because you'll probably want to pass that one along too. It's an amazing book. He was an amazing person.
Sort of a domino effect of sorts. And
exactly.
I think that a lot of people who make it into, we'll say, the limelight, a lot of them want to stay there and I guess have their 15, if they can get 30 or 45 minutes or an hour of fame, then they're going to shoot for that. Whereas the real, I think the real truth, if you will, that comes out, such as you have just described it, is that it's more important to get people to move on because they're going to carry you with them whether they move on from you or not, because they've read the work that you have put out, and now that's a part of them. All right.
Right.
They'll
Yeah.
never get rid of that. You can't erase that.
That's right.
But if you've propelled them forward to someone else who they read, and then that person propels them forward. And I mean, that's the beautiful thing about your book. In the back, you've got that list of books to read. What is it, 200, something like that?
I'm
And
not sure. I need to count them because, what comes up, but there's a lot of books.
there's a
It's
lot of them.
a
I mean,
couple
I've
pages,
got now.
couple pages.
I have mostly books I've received through doing interviews with people in my library. I mean, if I was to turn the camera to the bookcase, it would look very much, if not bigger or more, than your bookcases behind you right now. But still, I've read some of them, bits and pieces, but most of them, they're just up there, and I need to pass them on, and that's really what you're promoting here in this respect, and what we're talking about is getting people to move on, move forward. Don't necessarily stay in one spot. Do I like Paramahansa Yogananda and what he's put out? Sure. And do I go back and read it? Sure. But what I find interesting, Dennis, the universe has an interesting way of bringing back to us, or bringing us back to, some of the foundations that we have sort of created throughout our lives. And for me, it happens to be the Paramahansa Yogananda and his philosophy, because I have found out about two other branches of the same tree. And I got to know them very well, and I've interviewed them on this program and so forth. And I'm thinking, well, what's the deal here? Is the universe telling me that I should become a member? Or is it just saying, is the universe just telling me, hey, it's all basically the same stuff. You're just there learning it, you're absorbing it, and then you're sharing it through what you do through these programs, or in my case, through my book, or in your case, through your book. And it seems to me that that's a big message to get across to people too. That you don't necessarily want to be beholden to one philosophy or one thing. I wish that I had had an opportunity to take a class in comparative religions back when I was a young lad, as it were. I've been doing that, of course, doing these programs. What about you? Obviously, I mean, I mean, the answer to the question is absolutely, because you just take a look at the books, the list of books you have, not just in your those top books that you want people to read, but also your bibliography from the stories, poems, and quotes that you have in your book.
Okay. So what's the question? I'm sorry.
Well, the question is, in terms of your moving forward and continuing, I'm sure you continue to be impressed by and inspired by even some of the new writers of this day in the 21st century.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, if you read every day, you're going to be impressed by a lot of different people. The heart and soul, the thing you were talking about, these people are part of you. Norman Vincent Peale, Napoleon Hill, Zig Ziglar. The list, I could just go on and on and on and on. Og Mandino. These people are part of my soul. And I actually never met them, but I feel like I know them.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they're a part of me. And when I quote them, it's with a great deal of admiration and appreciation. The end of the story of 25,000 books, the last sentence says, I hope I've inspired you and want you to get the book. And if so, I'll meet you at the top. That's the name of the book. If you're inspired and you want to read this and you read it, then we'll both be at the top. Because look, my book is good, but if you take all of the things in it that other people put in it, it's a masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
Those poems are absolutely amazing. And all I did was save them. I mean, I didn't change them. I just put them in there. But it doesn't change them being amazing.
Yeah.
And those books that I recommend, they're all life-changing books. And if you read them in order, there's no way it's not going to change you. I mean, it's going to make you a different person, maybe a better person, maybe not. It's how you approach it. If you approach it as, well, I don't like these kind of things, they're not going to be any good, nothing's going to help me, you're right.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
Things are going to be kind of the way you expect them to be. Well,
Yeah.
hopefully these change the reading this is going to change your expectations.
Yeah.
So that your expectations is that you're going to be successful and you're going to reach these wonderful, great heights of things that you never dreamed that you could. Just think, what if everybody removed all the negative from their life? And when they thought of, when they're given a desire, instead of thinking, I'm not worthy, I don't have the money, I don't have the education, I don't have the contacts, I don't have. What if all that stuff didn't exist and you had this desire and you thought, well, I'm just going to do whatever it takes and nothing's going to stop me and I'm going to do it. If everybody was like that, it'd be a different world, wouldn't it?
It would
Wouldn't it be a
indeed.
lot more fun?
You know, there's a country in the Middle East that exists that didn't, and I'm trying to remember the name of the country now, but it was created. It was created by piling sand in the water. Dubai. And it is more than just a thriving metropolis.
Big, yeah.
All right. It's absolutely astounding what has been created there.
Right.
And there are high rises there. I mean, there are towering skyscrapers. All right. And so forth. And that never would have happened if the people who actually created it took that perspective of, if only I had, if only I had. Now, using Zig's book title, all right, Meet You at the Top. Do you think that a lot of people think there's only so much room at the top, and that's why one of the reasons why they don't pursue?
Zig often said, there's plenty of room at the top. There's so many people there because they're not willing to climb the ladder. So yeah, the room at the top is, that's not a problem. You're not going to find a crowd when you get there. There'll be a handful of others.
Yeah. Have you ever seen any of these short little videos where they feature the construction of these incredible projects, specifically focusing in China? Some of these highways that are mounted on literally the side of a mountain, 2 lanes, separate. Yes. And then of course the Great Wall of China took several thousand. What is it, 1,200 years to build, something like that, over the course of time. And then some of the other incredible marvels. Yeah, there are some cities where they went crazy and built apartment high rises that sit empty today. That's a whole nother subject. But just the fact that they built all of these for the people. But it just seems to me like there's so much incredible innovation that I've seen in some of these videos that blow me away. It's like, you could do that? I never knew you could do that. That's amazing, It's just incredible, and it can happen. And it doesn't have to be in China or in Dubai. It can be anywhere in between. And one of the things you said earlier that I just want to touch on before we pause here, the way you talk about how you're from Alabama and Zig was from Alabama, and I'm sitting here thinking, so, Dennis, are you implying that great wisdom comes from the South?
Oh, well.
I love it. Dennis Henson is my guest. Real Impact, realimpactbook.com. Please go there and stay tuned. We're going to wrap things up here in just a moment here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan along with Dennis Henson, and we are going to continue this series of programs as we move forward throughout this year. I'm very excited about the opportunities for you to embrace what we're sharing here. And even if it's just bits and pieces of what we're sharing here, that's fine too. I hope that you'll come back every week and listen as we bring many different ideas from these many different stories. Am I correct? There are like what, 30, 31, 32 stories in the book, or the over 40?
I think there's 33, but that's kind of deceptive because, for example, the Lincoln story has about 20 stories inside. It's called the sandwich technique, where you have a story within a story.
Yeah.
So if you read the entire Lincoln story, I don't know, it's probably 35, 40 minutes. I'm not sure how long it takes. But if you don't want to read that much, you can just read it broken up into sections, and there's
Yeah.
about 20 different sections, and each one is a story.
Yeah. I actually tend to do that in these conversations. I'll put a story inside a story inside. And I got to stop. I got to work on that a little bit. Although I do try to make them coherent and contiguous, but nonetheless, it's just remarkable. And of course, we are looking forward to, of course, volumes 2 and 3 and other great works as we work our way, not just through this year, but as you move forward in your career and what you're doing and what you love to do. And I just want to ask you before we wrap things up here, not so much with real impact, but what is the message that Dennis Henson wants to get across to people through all that he has done thus far?
Well, my goal is to leave the world in a better place than it was when I came. Yeah, I heard a story about a young man who was in an expensive hotel. There was a convention going on, and he walked into the restroom, and there was a guy in a $2,000 suit with really nice shoes and a Rolex watch, and he was cleaning the sink. And so he said, "Do you work here? Why are you cleaning the sink?" And he said, "Well, I just like to leave things better than I found them." Now, that really impressed me. And I thought, what a great way to look at things. What if everybody came into the world and decided at one time, I want to leave the world in a better place because I was here? And that's my legacy. That's why I wrote this book. It's not to make a lot of money, although I would love to make a lot of money.
Sure.
I would rather change a lot of people's lives for the better. And then 100 years from now, and when people mention Dennis Henson, I would like for them to say, oh, yes, he's the one that wrote that, or he's the one that changed this, or he's the one that did that. That means a lot, and especially as you get older. Legacy means more.
Absolutely. No, I still remember a guest I had on, a rabbi who wrote a book called "What Will They Say About You When You're Gone?" Long title, but very, very appropriate. What will they say about you when you're gone? And it's going to be interesting. I'm hoping I have an opportunity when I'm quote unquote gone to listen in. I would be very interesting. It would be very interesting to just see if I made the kind of difference and if you made the kind of difference that we both would like to in the world. And I thank you for making a difference on this program.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me, and I look forward to the next one. They're lots of fun.
Absolutely. Folks, I thank you for tuning in and listening in and viewing Tell Me Your Story, this series on Real Impact. RealImpactBook.com is the website. Please get your e-copy. All right, it'll be a wonderful addition to your computer or your phone, what have you. And we hope that you will join us every week at this same time for these conversations with Dennis Henson and conversations about real impact. Here on Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m. Streaming live at those times at richarddugan.com, with podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio. We're on YouTube where you can watch these conversations. We also hope you'll take some time to go within and listen to that still small voice during this, the second half, if you can believe it, folks, of the decade of perfect vision, the 2020s. And with all that being said, we thank you for listening and watching Tell Me Your Story. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to Lal. Jeanette, I am still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I will see you on the other side. And then to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.